774. Let's go. Baruch, let's go. 774. Okay, so we started out yesterday. Alan, it's rolling? We started yesterday with the command to Aaron has to light the menorah. So I saw a very interesting the Ramban. You've heard of the Ramban, right? So the Ramban, I'll talk to you afterwards. The Ramban was living in I forgot where he was living in somewhere in Spain, I think, and eventually he decided to go to Eretz Yisrael. The Ramban wanted to go live in Eretz Yisrael. And he told his disciples that when he goes to Eretz Yisrael, in those days they didn't have this communication. So he said, how will they know when he dies? So the Ramban said that they should look at his parents. The Ramban's parents were buried there in Spain. I thought, I want to say Barcelona, but I don't remember exactly, where it was. But the Ramban said that he's in Eretz Yisrael, and what they should do is look at his parents, his father or his father's parents' tombstone. And on the day that the Ramban dies, his parents' tombstone, and the Ramban's going to be in Eretz Yisrael. On the day he dies, his parents' tombstone is going to crack open, and they'll look inside and they'll see the image of a menorah. They'll see the image of a menorah. And part of the idea, I should go with 7 prongs. You're a menorah. And part of the idea is that the tzaddikim have some sort of ruach hakodesh when they're going to die. They sense that their death is coming, and that they're going to occupy a high place in Shemayim where the lights are shining. They'll be under the lights. And somehow, and apparently this is documented. I'm not making any of this stuff. It's documented in reliable sources. This wasn't this wasn't something that was somebody said over after a couple of shots of a tish. This is documented that the Ramban, when he died, sure enough, the tombstone cracked open, and they said because they knew the Ramban had died. So part of the idea is, and what's interesting is when it comes to tombstones in general, so first of all, Kohen tombstones, there was a tradition. I don't know if everybody, on the Kohen tombstones, they put the Kohen hands, like doing the Birkas Kohanim. On the Leviim, I think the tradition was they put they put a shofar on somebody they put a shofar, and on somebody they put washing, they carve it into the tombstones. We had a guy here at Ohr Somayach, by the way, who was years ago, this is many, many years ago, probably one of my earliest years, who was a Baal Tshuva, had no idea his family background, and he actually spoke to his Rav back in America, and the Rav determined that he's a Kohen. How did he determine it? Because he went to the cemetery, he saw his grandfather's grave, and on his grandfather's grave there were hands carved on there. So he was, he was, that's how they determined he's a Kohen. That's enough of a chazaka that you could establish a chazaka that he's a Kohen, because that was a tradition. What we don't do is we don't put pictures on graves, and that's become that's not accepted. In traditional Judaism, you do not put pictures on graves, and it's certainly a problem to put sometimes they actually put a protruding image on the grave. And there's a Chassam Sofer that says if people go to grave sites and they daven, if there's a protruding image from the grave, then there's a problem davening there, because it's like you're davening to an image. There's an image on a grave, which almost like a human image is a problem. That's one of the differences between the crosses. The Protestant and the Catholic cross is a different cross. The Protestants have just a regular cross, which there is a discussion among the halachic authorities if the Protestant cross is considered an idol or if it's only a symbol. It's just a symbol of the religion, whereas the Catholic cross has the hockey player on it. It has a human image with the hockey player on there. You know he's a hockey player, don't you? He got nailed into the boards. So that's for sure an idol. That's a very big problem. So so we don't, that it has become, it's very in vogue, in certain, I remember passing a cemetery once out in Tel Aviv or something where it's a largely, unfortunately not observant community, and I saw that on the grave they have pictures of the people from life. That's not a Jewish tradition at all.
I saw it in Brooklyn too.
In Brooklyn, where these are people that not, where it's not, that's certainly not the tradition. It's not the tradition. We don't put pictures on there. You put a gravestone. Yeah, the sculpture is certainly a problem. In a Jewish sculpture, that's certainly a problem. That's even a bigger problem. So that's as far as what he called. That's as far as the menorah. So the menorah symbolizes over here, and that's why you take a look in the third pasuk, 3 lines on the top. Vayas kein Aaron el mul pnei menorah hele neroseh. Aaron raised up the flames opposite the menorah. Kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe. The commentaries say el mul pnei menorah. Why did Aaron do this avoda? Because there was lighting the menorah down here. It was parallel to the menorah up in Shemayim. And only Aaron knew the secret with whatever the Kabbalistic thoughts, whatever the kavanas, whatever the intentions were. When lighting this menorah, somehow it reflects and has a connection to the menorah in Shemayim. So that's why it says, El mul pnei ha-menorah, opposite the menorah. Opposite which menorah? Opposite menorah up there. Okay, now, we're going on to the next section, and this is where the Leviim are chosen. And the Leviim are now going to replace the firstborns of the Jewish people. So the Bechors were the ones who were supposed the firstborn. Anybody here a firstborn? Firstborn male? You got to be the firstborn, mamish firstborn. Oh, you are firstborn. Okay. Any Leviim? Oh, you got both. So you replace yourself. The others are all replaced. Any Kohanim? Oh. It's my turf. This is my turf. So what do you call it? How many are Leviim? Only one Levi?
Two.
That's it. Okay, you can both wash my hands. So but only if you ask nicely. So the Bechors, the firstborns are replaced. Why are they replaced? Because they worship the golden calf. They were involved. Where the Leviim were the only ones who 100% stayed loyal, and therefore they replaced the Bechors. Now over here we're going to see some strange stuff. So let's read a few psukim. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe Lebar. Hashem says to Moshe, Kaches ha-Levim mitoch the Bnei Israel. Take the Leviim from the Bnei Israel, v'tiharta osam, and you're going to purify the Leviim. Now you're going to pluck them out of the Bnei Israel. Now look at Rashi for a second. Rashi says in pasuk Hey, where's Rashi? On the left column of Rashi, Kaches ha-Levim. Left column, 6 lines from the top. Kachem bidvarim. Take the Leviim and say something to them that's going to, motivate them, it's going to encourage them, it's going to inspire them. Kachem bidvarim, take them with words, verbally. What are you going to say? Ashrechem, you're fortunate, shetizku lios shamoshim lamakom. Fortunate are you that you're going to be merit to be the servants of Hashem. That you get to do the service in the base of Yeshiva. There were 2 types of services the Leviim did. One of them was they sang, and the other was they were the gatekeepers. They had different services. I mean, if I would tell you that I'm promoting you, kachem bidvar means, Moshe, you gotta say something to them that's going to get them really enthusiastic about it. If you're working in a job, say, by the way, I'm promoting you to vice president. You're just one of the regular workers. You're vice president of the company now. And how much? Do I have to twist your arm? I don't twist your arm, make you a vice president. It goes with it. So why is it that the Leviim, what is it that could be resistant to be there? Obviously, if I've got to convince you, kachem b'dvarim means it's a form of convincing. Why do I got to convince you for something which is really a privilege? To be a vice president, you might say, well, listen, yeah, but I got more responsibility. Maybe I don't want. Most people who you promote them at work, most people don't need to be convinced that hard. You give a guy a promotion. So Leviim are being chosen, they're being a privilege, or they're being promoted. What do you got to convince them? There's one very simple answer. What does it always boil down to?
With great power comes great responsibility.
With power is responsibility, but most people are willing to take on the responsibility. Most people don't have a problem with it. The problem with the Leviim is that once you're chosen as a Levi, then you don't have a portion in the land of Israel. This is going to cost you. Right? At the end of the day, it comes down to the wallet.
But they got the cities.
They had cities, but they didn't have property that they could work fields and that sort of thing. They had to rely on handouts. They had to rely on miser. They had to rely on tenth of the produce. Say, hey, I got good news and bad news. You got to, what's the bad? Tell me the bad news first. No, first the good news. The good news is you got a promotion. Wow, that's terrific. Yeah, but at a cut in salary. Oh, I'm not sure I want that promotion. That's what's happening. Because you're being chosen, but now you don't have land. And we're going to see later on in history, when Ezra went up and he led the Jews back for the second Beis Hamikdash, the Leviim didn't want to go with him. Why not? Because they were in Babylonia and they were already established. You're going to go into the land of Israel and have no property. We're not, we're not into this. So and they got penalized for it. Because the Leviim didn't join, Ezra had to penalize them. He took away the miser from them. Why would they resist? The answer is sometimes in life, I'm not, what's in it for me over here? That's great. It sounds great. I love the privilege and I love everything else, but what am I going to do for a parnasa? And then you got to rely on Jews. Okay, the Leviim got a nice chunk because every field at Klal Yisrael, 10% went to the Leviim. But you better be a popular Levi. If you're not a popular Levi, Nathan, be good to people. If you're a Kohen, so then, you be a popular Kohen, so people are going to give you, they'll use you for Pidyon HaBen, and they'll use you to give you the cuts of meat and the various things. But, if you provoke people and the guys in your Gemara shir aren't happy with you, so then you might end up in trouble. So you got to behave yourself. So the Torah is saying, number one, Israel, hold for a few minutes. There are a few points here I want to show you. Now, let me show you something. Alan, you got to follow me with the camera now. It says, Kaches alavim mitoch b'nei Yisrael. Wow, whose handwriting is this? This is like genius handwriting over here. Okay. I once went to a handwriting guy, showed him my handwriting. He took a look at my handwriting. He's looking at me like, what crimes did you commit? Okay, so watch this. It says, take the Leviim mitoch b'nei Yisrael. Okay, watch this. Let's take the word. Alan, you got this on the thing? Yep. Okay, here's the word Yisrael. Yud, Shin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed. Okay, now, this is a Yud. Now, let's spell the letter Yud. How do you spell the letter Yud? Yud, Vav, Daled. Yud. How do you spell the letter Shin? Shin, Yud, Nun. You with me so far?
Yeah.
How do you spell a Resh? Resh, Yud, Shin. Aleph is Aleph, Lamed, Pei. And Lamed is Lamed, Mem, Daled. Okay? Now, which letters would you say? This is the word Yisrael. Here's the word Yisrael. Spelled out, each letter spelled out. Which are the letters that are Besoch Yisrael? Which are the ones that are inside Yisrael? Is these letters over here, right? These letters over here are the ones that are Besoch. They're the middle letters when you spell out each letter. If you rearrange these letters over here, Vav, Yud, Yud, Lamed, Men, what do you get? Leviim. So, Kach es ha-Leviim mitoch b'nei Yisrael. Take the Leviim from inside Yisrael. Well, there's the word Yisrael. Open it up, and then you get the Leviim inside. Another one of those little coincidences you find in Torah. Whose idea was that? No, it was not my idea. It was actually the Vilna Gaon. Right, so that's why, see, that's what happens. So that's entertainment. Now, let's go on. What are you going to do with the Leviim? Purify them. V'chosas elahem l'taram. You see, do you understand what just happened up there? Pretty nifty, isn't it? I thought it was anyway. V'chosas elahem l'taram. This is what you should do to purify them. Hazei aleim mechata, so you can sprinkle water on them. Ve'haviru sar al kol besaram. They're going to shave all of their flesh. V'chibsu bigdeihem v'itaro. They're going to purify their clothing, and they are going to be purified. So what happens to the Leviim? The Leviim have to be shaved bald. Every area of their body is shaven. Now, this brings about two problems. What's the problem?
Faces.
Your faces, you're going to shave their faces. And what's the halacha?
You're not allowed.
You're not allowed to shave with a razor. Now, we are not allowed to shave with a razor. The halacha is there are 5 points on the face. We're not sure exactly where they are. They are approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're not allowed to shave it with a razor. For Jews, do not shave with razors. We're allowed to use a scissors. You could use a scissors action, which is why you could use certain shavers. Electric shavers are a scissors action, but even electric shavers, some of them are actually called electric razors. Where what it's not where, see, if it's cutting the hair with a scissors action, that's fine. But some of the shavers actually pull the skin out and they just hack the hair out. With they gave a very closer shave. That's like just what they really. They're even called electric razors. That's a what do you call it? That's a problem according to what do you call it? So sometimes there are different shavers have to be looked at by poskim. Poskim talk about which even electric shavers a person could use, so it should be a problem. Waxing would be a problem because then you're pulling the hair out at the roots. Whereas there are certain people who, when they shave, like in many of the yeshiva guys who are very firm and won't use shavers, so they use some sort of a sulfur solution that they just, but it just burns it, what do you call it? Then you see them walking around scarred for a few days. But they use this, there's a cream that, it's like a woman's, the pill, what's it called? They're like that sort of thing. But you can't use a woman's cream because then there's a problem of using women's implements, but they use the men's stuff, and believe me, this is men's stuff, because this is a sulfur thing. And what do you call it? I remember my older brother came back from yeshiva the first time he had left home. He came back for a visit to Chicago. And I remember every once in a while there's this really unpleasant smell in the house. And it took me a while to put it together. It was happening on Friday afternoons when my brother was shaving. And how did he shave? He put this stuff on. You put this, it looks like mud. I mean, it's like going to the Dead Sea. You know what the Dead Sea smells like? And he put this stuff on. The whole house, he was all the way in the basement, up on the 3rd floor. It was terrible. And the problem is that it burns, it's uncomfortable. That's as far as shaving. Now, the idea of not shaving with a razor, by the way, why we can't shave with a razor, according to, first of all, it was the right of the idol-worshipping priests, which is a very interesting connection over here to the Levium, which we'll see in a second. Number one, it was one of the rights of the idol-worshipping priests is that you should shave with a razor. Number two, one of the commentators, Rabbi Bechaye, is one of the classic, he was a Talmud of the Ramban, actually, a disciple of the Ramban. He says like this: how many senses do we have? What are the basic senses that a person has? We're told, 5 senses. What are they? Touch, smell, taste, hearing, and seeing, right? Sight, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. Now, if you stop and think about it, in this area right here, we have all 5 senses. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. Because the tongue is the most sensitive touching organ in the body. The what do you call it? It's at the end of the tongue actually magnify what they're touching. That's why if you have a cavity and you touch it with your tongue, so it feels like, wow, you must have, it's like the Grand Canyon in there, and when you look at it by the dentist, it's this little hole that your tongue, oh my goodness, that sort of thing. If you're ever trying to find the roll, I'll give you a free tip. Maybe you could pay me for it, but I'll keep it free. If you're ever trying to find the beginning of a roll of Scotch tape and you're having trouble, what do? Always at the tongue. True or not true?
No, I've never done that.
You never done that? Well, you got to. Okay, listen, life experience. If you ever have what do you call? You ever a splinter that you can't find? What do? Like that. Why not with your finger? Because your tongue is much more sensitive in your finger. So that means that in this region over here, we have all 5 senses. And what the Torah is telling you, when you shave with a razor, it's called hashchasa. Hashchasa means literally destruction, total removal of the senses, these 5 points corresponding to the 5 senses in this area. And the Torah said that's not, first of all, that was a right of the idol-worshipping priests, so we avoid that. But on a deeper level, the Torah is telling you that's not our job as a Torah Jew. We're not trying to destroy our senses. We're trying to get our senses under control. We don't set them aside. We're not ascetics. We use our senses. We don't destroy the senses. That having been said, at the end of the day, we don't shave with a razor. If we don't shave with a razor, I remember I was about 11 years old, it was the middle of winter in Chicago, and I'm wearing like a ski cap and my coat. I went in, I wanted to get my father a gift for Father's Day, which, by the way, I think is today, so call your fathers. Like I said, it was yesterday. Call him today and wish him a happy Father's Day, and don't say a word about, oh, Dad, and by the way, you should start making brachas also. Leave out the Yiddishkeit, and don't buy him a big book on philosophy. Get him a new set of golf clubs. But at the end of the day, so I go into there's a pharmacy, like a Jewish pharmacy. The lady wasn't religious. So I said, I want to get my dad something for Father's Day. I said, I'll get him some aftershave or something, some shaving equipment. So she said to me, does your father use a brush? A brush meaning a razor. That's what they used to call it, a brush. Did your father use a brush? Now I know that my father used a shaver, and he had this little brush to clean out his shaver. Right, he had this little shaver. So I said, well, I think so. I was 11 years old. I said, I think so. And as I said that, I pulled off my cap, my ski cap, and I had my yarmulke underneath. And she looks at me and goes, no, he doesn't. Right? And so she gave me some aftershave or cologne, that's something like that. And that's what I got him for Father's Day. Well, now listen, my brother bought my mother chewing tobacco for Mother's Day. Yeah, he's the one we don't talk about. He bought her chewing tobacco. Yeah, he says, what more logical gift could there be for Mother's Day? Yeah, yeah. I think he's meeting his parole officer right now, even as we speak. So the question over here becomes, well, the Torah says not to use a razor, so how could they? And they shaved the Levium bald over here. How could they do that? What's the answer? Correct. The answer is it's not the only time in the Torah we find this. Why can't you shave with a razor? Why can't you shave with a razor? Because Hashem said so. The same Hashem who gave those rules says when you should shave with a razor. Here he says shave with a razor. The same Hashem says well, you're not allowed to be cruel to animals, so how can you push a goat off a cliff on Yom Kippur? Because the same Hashem who says you have to push a goat off a cliff. The same Hashem says that you're not allowed to murder people, yet the same Torah says that certain people have to be executed. How can you execute? Because it's the same Hashem. I tell you, in chess, you're not allowed to jump over other pieces in chess, but your knight could. Why? Because whoever made up the rules of chess said there it can't, and here it can. That's the exception to the rule. You're not allowed to marry your brother. If a man dies, you can't marry his wife. You can't marry the brother's wife. The brother can't, Reuven can't marry Shimon's wife if Shimon dies, except if what? If he dies without children. Then not only he could marry her, he should marry her. It becomes a mitzvah to marry her, and so on and so forth. So that's not a problem. The question is why? Why does the Torah say they should shave all hair? By the way, the Gemara says not the hair that's in the covered places on the body. That means in the private area and in the armpits, that hair is not shaven. All other visible hair on the body is shaven. What's the idea of hair removal for the Levium? What's the idea over here? What do you think hair removal is? Tuma, it's not tameh. It's not tameh per se. You're close though. Not what kind of hair represents excess? I mean, you don't really need it, as evidenced by me. You get along without it. What do you call it? And your hat fits on better in some cases, right? You don't need it, and it's excess. And when you get a haircut, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to get a haircut. Hair is considered excess. The Levium who are going into the divine service, there's a message over here that the excesses have to be removed. Why is it that you had this? They used to call the priests in Hebrew, the priests, the Goyish priests are called the Galach. The Galach are the shaven ones. Why did they shave? Why were they shaven? And then you get to the more extreme ones, the monks. Any of you have ever been to Tibet or what do you call it? India, Tibet. Where's that place by near Tibet? What's the other place?
Tibet.
What?
Tibet. Shaolin.
Tibet. There's the other one out there and you got a bunch of guys running around completely bald, right? They did the Chinese monks. Why were they bald? What was it? Because there's the same idea. They understand also there's this idea of removing excess. By them, it's too much excess. They remove all excess, and then they sit on a bed of nails for 20 days or something. Then that sort of thing. But it's a symbolic of, and the Levium are now going into a higher level. They're an elevated state. You're not removed from the world completely. That's the idea of not shaving certain areas of the body, because you still are part of the physical world. But you have to shave the visible excess to show that we're going to try to get a little more, even more self-control. Even in permissible areas, we're going to avoid it. That's the idea. Now look what happens over here. Skip ahead now. They bring an offering. And then in Pasuk Yud, top of 770, really some bizarre stuff here. V'ikravtes alavim lifnei Hashem. You should bring the Levim before Hashem. V'samchu b'nei Yisrael es yedeim alavim. The b'nei Yisrael are now going to put their heads on the Levim, their hands on the Levim's heads. There are 22,000 Levim. So there are those that say that there were representatives of the Jewish people who put their hands on the Jewish heads. Only certain people did this. Some say all the Jewish people put their head. And when you put your hands on the head of a korban, you know when you brought a korban, a sacrifice to the base of Mikdash? When you brought an offering, you also you put your hands on the head of the offering, you said a confession, and you push down as hard as you can with all your strength. When they said smicha means putting the hands on the head of an animal, you push down on the animal with all your strength. Symbolically meaning that you're transferring yourself, what's supposed to be happening to this person is really going to happen to the animal now. And when the animal is slaughtered, the person's supposed to look at it and say, that should be happening to me. Slaughtering, skinning, burning on the altar. So pushing down it. So the Jewish people put their hands on the Levim because they see the Levim as the offering for the Jewish people. And that's what the smicha is. Now comes the really weird part. V'henif Aaron es ha-Levim tunufa l'shavnei Hashem. Aaron then waves the Levim me'es b'nei Yisrael v'hayu lavod es avodas Hashem. He waves the Levim. How does he wave the Levim? You pick them up, according to one opinion, like a lulav. Up, down, and all their different, you wave the Levim. Now, there's one opinion that says he picked them up by their hand and their feet, by hand and foot. So I guess they're on the side like this, kind of awkward. But that's what the Medrash says. He picked up the Levim. Now, let's make a calculation. There are 20, like you wave them. There are certain korbanos that you wave. Certain korbanos that you wave the korban up and down. And like we do with the lulav, you shake the lulav up, down, all around, that sort of thing. Make a calculation. There are 22,000 Levim. You got to pick them up. You know what 22,000 is? 22,000. Look at one section of the stands in Michigan State's football stadium. You want to see what a lot of people is, go to a sports stadium. When you go to a sports, I remember being on Wrigley Field. And after the game, and it looks like a lot of people. I remember after the game going to the train, and just this, you don't even realize how many people, until after the game, there's this mob of people coming out, which is, they're in Wrigley Field's a small stadium, holds about 50,000 people. Michigan, I think, has the biggest stadium in the country with about 108,000 people, something like that. The Rose Bowl also in Pasadena, California, over 100,000 people. In Spain, Barcelona, that thing it looks like a small city. Is it Barcelona? Real Madrid or Barcelona? Barcelona. What do they hold? About 120,000 people or something. Absolutely massive. Absolutely massive with what do you call it? Now, take one section of that is 20,000 people, 22,000 Levim. How long would it take you just to touch each person? To touch 22,000, go 22,000. It wouldn't take you a week, but it would take you a while to touch 22,000, just to count 22,000 people. Aaron has to pick up each Levi and pick him up and wave him. Make a calculation, 22,000 Levim. Now there are different opinions whether he had to do it in a 24-hour period or a 12-hour period. If it was a 22 or 4-hour period, so each Levi gets 4 seconds. It would take 4 seconds per Levi to pick him up, wave him, and put him down. And if it was a 12-hour period, it's 2 seconds per Levi. Right. So how does that work? So it doesn't work. According to the Mefarshim, you see, and to say nothing of the strength, after a while you get tired over here. And it's only Aaron waving 22,000 Levim. There is one opinion that they just walk past them. But even 22,000 people walking past you is also like, what, next. You ever been at the bank? Next. So according to, by all accounts, there was some sort of nace that took place over here. By all accounts, it was a miraculous occurrence. It cannot be explained. By natural law, there's no way to explain how Aaron could have done 22,000 Levium alone in one day. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. What's the idea of waving them? What is the idea of waving them? You're elevating them. The Jewish people see them as a sacrifice. You're going in our behalf. Aaron is picking them up. We're elevating you into the service. We're putting you in a new station now. We're moving you up. We're promoting you to a new level.
Is there a reason of Hakbar, like in a way of taking the ownership of something?
That's interesting because the Levim are there to serve the Jewish people, but at the end of the day, they don't own them. The Torah says specifically that they don't own them. So, and when you did it, it's an interesting question. And when they did it on a korban also, it wasn't for the sake of ownership. It wasn't to show ownership. It's an interesting question. I never thought of that. Okay, take a look now at, let's see what we got. Okay, take a look at Pasuk Yud Tes. Skip on a little bit. And then it says like this. Pick it up on Pasuk Tes Zayin. Ki nesunim he on 776. 776, 10 lines from the top. So he said, take the Levium and you wave them. Ki nesunim hemali. Everybody see that? Everybody see that? Say about 10 lines from the top. Pasuk Tes Zayin. Ki nesunim hemali. They are given to me. Mitoch B'nei Yisrael, Tachas Pitras Korechem Bechor, in place of every firstborn who opened up the womb. Mibnei Yisrael Akachti Osam Li. Ki li kol Bechor B'nei Yisrael, because all the firstborns are mine, Ba'adam U'Ba'Baheba, by man and animal. B'yom HaKosi Kol Bechor Be'eretz Mitzrayim, on the day that I smote the Bechors in Mitzrayim, Hikdashti Osam Li. When I smote the Bechors of Mitzrayim, that's when I took the Bechors of the Bnei Yisrael for myself. But then I replaced them biyom ve'ekach es halavim tachas kol bechor b'vnei Yisrael. Va'etna es halavim nesunim la'aron u'levanov mitoch b'nei Yisrael. And then I've given the Levim, and the Torah repeats this a couple of times. La'avod es avodas b'nei Yisrael ba'oid u'lechaper al b'nei Yisrael. To serve and be an atonement for b'nei Yisrael. Now pay attention carefully. This is the line I want to get to. V'lo yiyeh b'vnei Yisrael negef begeshes b'nei Yisrael el hakodesh. There should be no plague in the b'nei Yisrael if the b'nei Yisrael approach the holy area. That means the Levim are given an assignment. They're only allowed to go in, and a Jew is not allowed to go in there. And if Jews go in there, there'll be a negef, there'll be a plague, or the individual will die. Now, if you notice in this pasuk 19, what stands out? I'm going to read the pasuk again very fast, so you'll tell me what stands out. V'etnas haLevim nesunim la'aron u'levanov mitoch b'nei Yisrael la'avodas b'nei Yisrael v'ol moed l'chaper al b'nei Yisrael v'lo yeh b'vnei Yisrael negev v'negesh es b'nei Yisrael el hakodesh.
Children of Israel.
B'nei Yisrael is repeated 5 times. 5 times of b'nei Yisrael. I mean, at a certain point, we understood who they're talking about. Why does it repeat it 5 times? Take a look at Rashi. Take a look at Rashi. Pasuk Yud Tes. It's the left column of Rashi, top line. Va'etna chamisha pe'amim nemar b'nei Yisrael b'mikrazah. 5 times it says b'nei Yisrael in this pasuk. Lehodia chibasan, to let you know how beloved they are. Shenichbelu azkeroseim b'makom echad. It lets you know how beloved they are because it mentions their name over and over in one pasuk. You say somebody's name and you keep saying their name. People love hearing their name. Most pleasant sound. The Gemara says, by the way, you don't talk to somebody, you don't address somebody without calling their name. You don't just walk up to somebody and say, hi, by the way, what page are we? You say, Azriel, what page are we on? That's derech eretz. It's proper that you address somebody, you don't start talking, hey, by the way, what time is class over? You don't say, like, Griffin, what time is class over? You don't just start talking. That's derech eretz, proper Torah etiquette. So he says here, it mentions it 5 times. Why 5 times? Lahodiyah chibasan. Ooh, they're beloved. Shenichbelu azkerosein B'mikra echad. I mean, I used to call my kid's name a few times, but that wasn't beloved. When you're calling your kid's name a few times, it had nothing to do with beloved. That was trouble. And if your wife ever calls you by your full name, then you know you're normally she calls you something. If your wife ever says to you, Dovid Kaplan, hey lady, you know my name. You took my name. I didn't take your name. You took my name. Then you know that you're his. That hasn't happened to me for a long time. That was like if I ate a pie that I wasn't supposed, because I was baked for somebody's simcha. And so, and my wife baked a pie late Thursday night, and by Friday morning it was no longer in existence. And she opens up to Dovid Kaplan. It was a good pie, though. It's good pie and goodbye. No. Would I do it again? No. Waterboarding is only fun once. So if you call somebody a number of times, is belovedness. Kineged chamisha chumshei Torah. Parallel to the 5 Torah. What does that mean? What does it mean? Rashi, people think that Rashi and Gemara, you gotta, Rashi and Chumash, and again, I told you, it's Chazal. What's Rashi telling you here? So there are 2 ideas here. Idea number 1 is that by mentioning the Jewish people, why do we need to show belovedness for the Jewish people at this point? Why do you need to show belovedness? So, they may feel like they're a bit of an inferiority. Oh, yeah, we've been totally rejected in favor of the Levium. No. You're still beloved. Just that the Levium they've been chosen to do this job. You're still very beloved, number 1. Number 2, the parallel to the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. What's the Jewish people? Okay, they're 5, number. Let's play numbers. We know they're 5. Okay, so the answer is, if you have a Sefer Torah, what happens if the guy's reading the Torah, the Baal Koreh is reading, and also he notices one of the letters is missing. One letter out of the entire Torah is missing. What's the halacha? Puzzle. Sefer Torah is puzzle. Wrap it up. You got to put it back away. Take out a new Sefer Torah. Start laning. One letter missing or miswritten, or 2 letters that are touching together, or it's not. The whole Sefer Torah is puzzle. The whole Sefer Torah is missing something. The Jewish people need to know one Jew who's not included, not Jew who's gone missing. So there's something lacking from the Jewish. Not like, oh well, there's another Jew to replace him. It doesn't work that way. Every Jew contributes. Every Jew has something that he's contributing to the entirety of the Jewish people. That's the connection to the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. But I want to show you something else. Let me ask you a question. We were speaking yesterday about no atheists in a foxhole. Remember we mentioned that yesterday? When do you think people daven harder? When things are going well, or when things are not going well? What's that?
We're not going well.
We're not going so well. That's when people start davening. When things are going well, so there's a concept that we say in the davening every day, we say Modi Manachnu Lach, right? We say in the Shemona Esrei 3 times a day, Modi Manachnu Lach. We are thankful to you, Hashem. We're grateful to you, Hashem. A person should always say thank you in gratitude to Hashem for whatever they do have, health, money, talent of some sort, whatever you got. Say thank you to Rebbe Hashem for it. Not just to come when you need something. Not just when you need something. Because then, okay, so thank you. Oh, by the way, and this happens all the time. People call you up and say, by the way, thanks a lot. I just wanted to, can I borrow $20? And why are you only coming to me when you're only coming to me when you need something? I say, okay, you need it. I'll try to help you out. But the thank you, it's like people call teachers. I always tell parents, when you call a teacher, say, hi, by the way, my little Shlomi, he loves class. But could you move him up a little closer to the board? The thank you is not even heard. It's cheap, doesn't mean anything. I got 2 letters recently. I got 2 criticisms of 2, I got an email and a letter for, what's it called? Constructive criticism for some couple of things that I said on the in the Parsha shir, which doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. To the contrary, one of them was very respectful, and the lady had a very good point. I've tried to implement. I won't tell you what it is. I tried to implement it. Then I got another one, which is also, it always start the same way. You know, we were listening, we enjoyed the shir, you said something interesting, but, right? So how come you didn't call me? Why didn't you just send me the email saying something positive without any sort of criticism? That doesn't happen too often. Doesn't happen. When it's something critical, then all of a sudden we remember to say something nice. The nice doesn't mean anything then. Doesn't mean anything. You're doing it. You're only doing it because there's an intro. If you didn't have something negative to say, you wouldn't be saying the positive at all. So it doesn't mean anything to me. If somebody calls up and says, there are people who do. There are people who say nice things, and it's very much appreciated. But it's not when somebody says it with something else. I always tell parents, when your kid's in school, the first week of school, either write a note or call the Rabbi or the teacher. Say, by the way, my son loves the class. He just loves the class. And that's it. Then the rest of the year, whatever you want, you're going to get. Because they don't see you're not one of those kvetchers and complainers. And the next time you need something, you call up and say, by the way, my son still likes the class. Maybe he can move him closer to the blackboard. Or maybe you could invite him back into the classroom. He's been out of the room for the last 3 months. You know, maybe you could invite him. Whatever the case is. So here, when it comes to davening, we tend to go to Hashem when we need something. When we're hurting, then all of a sudden we get very, very, very. Look at this. Look at the pasuk. What the pasuk alludes to. It's all in Torah, gentlemen. It's all here. It says like this: "V'lo yiyeh b'vnei Yisrael negef b'geshes b'nei Yisrael al hakodesh." So the literal meaning is there won't be a plague in the Bnei Yisrael when they approach the holy area. That's what the Leviim go to the service, and the regular Jews don't do the service. Well, one of the commentaries says like this. What's Begeshes El HaKodesh mean? Begeshes El HaKodesh, when we approach the holy, when we approach Hashem. In Tefillah, when we approach Hashem to daven, don't approach V'lo yiyeh b'vnei Yisrael negef Begeshes. Don't only daven because you're suffering, because there's a plague or something else. V'lo yiyeh b'vnei Yisrael negef Begeshes b'nei Yisrael HaKodesh. When you approach Hashem, when davening, the Kodesh, it shouldn't be only a result of a negef, a result of some sort of setback in life, a result of some sort of ordeal. Go to Hashem and daven and say, thank you, Rabbi Hashem. Thank you that I have parnasa. Thank you that I have my health. Thank you. Just say thank you. And when you say modim and davening, you say modim anach, you could stop for a few seconds and think about the things in life that you have to thank Hashem for. There are certain things in life that everybody's lacking. Everybody has certain challenges, and everybody has certain setbacks, and everybody has certain things that they would like to be different. But what about the things? Somebody once said, how does the expression go? Don't complain about not getting from Hashem what you think you deserve, because then He may give you what you really deserve. Something like that. There's a lot of depth to that. So I'll tell you an interesting story. There's a guy in Eretz Yisrael named Rabbi Hanania Cholik. Have you heard of Rabbi Cholik? Have you heard of Ezer Mitzion? Ezer Mitzion is one of the medical relief organizations here in Israel. When people need medical referrals, they have a few of these, by the way, where people need a referral, and they have these frum guys who are experts. And I know one guy needed surgery on his hand, and he was sent to Italy. There's one doctor who's an expert on surgery on the middle finger. That's how specialized they are. Somebody needs heart surgery or somebody needs a certain treatment for cancer. They know the hospitals, the doctors all over the world, medical referral organization. Plus they have medical equipment and all sorts of, all these things, by the way, which were started by frum people that you never find anybody in the country complaining about. This Rabbi Cholik, I think it was either Rabbi Cholik or there's another one, Rabbi Feuer, Führer, Rabbi Führer. He also has a medical referral. I'm not sure which one it was. One of them was, in LA, it takes money to run these organizations. So I think it was Rabbi Cholik was with a very wealthy man, and he was courting this wealthy man. Eventually, was going to ask for a donation. And they went to the Kotel. They went to the Western Wall. And he was there, and they're standing by the Western Wall. He sees this Jew is crying his eyes out. So he's davening and he's crying. So Rabbi Cholak says to the wealthy man, look, if a Jew's crying, that means one of two things. Either he's got a financial issue or he's got a medical issue. Let's make a deal. If it's a medical issue, I'll deal with it. I got the medical organization. If it's a financial issue, you deal with it. So, rich guys who are going to give money, they like that kind of game. Why just write out, so he says, okay, so Cholak walks over, he says, hi, my name is Cholak. You got any medical issues in your family? I could help you. I think I could help you. I'll try to help you. I got the Ezer Mitzvah, I could try to. He says, no, Baruch Hashem, we're okay. Just standard Jewish stuff. Just a few ingrown toenails, but nothing terrible. Nothing disastrous. We're okay. So he goes to the rich guy and he says, okay, you're up. So the rich guy goes over, puts his arm around his shoulder. He says, listen, tell me what you need. Blank check. I'll write in. Just tell me how much you need. He says, no, Baruch Hashem, we don't have a lot. I don't need anything. So Cholak says, why are you crying? He says, I'll tell you. I have 12 children. And every time I had to marry off one of my children, marry off children is not easy. You got to deal with the other family, with the other family, and you got to find a wedding hall, and you got to deal with the other family, and you got to find a girl for your son or a son for your daughter, and you got to deal with the other family, and you got to get a band, and you got to deal with the other family, and it's not easy. So every time I've needed to marry off one of my children, I've come here to the Kaisel, and I've davened to Hashem for help. And every time he's helped me, financially, finding good children, everything has worked. Last night, I married off my 12th and final child. So I just came here tonight to say thank you to Hashem. He's crying thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it wasn't like he's crying and thanks, and by the way, we could use another couple of grand, just to pay for the, for what. No. He was what he called. He's just saying thank you. That's what the Torah is alluded to. Don't wait for their plight. Don't only come to daven to Hashem when things are not going well. Daven to Hashem when things are going well also. Just say thank you. It's an important thing to do. And then we have the opportunity 3 times a day. Modi manachlach. Just think, and it could be each time think about something else. Thank you, Rabbi Shalom, that the bus came on time yesterday. Thank you, Rabbi Shalom, that the train came out. Something to say thank you to Rabbi Shalom that creates the connection. That's what the Torah is saying. What else? Oh, by the way, I'll tell you a terrible story. I love it. There was a wedding, and the father. I don't know why I'm telling you this, but just because we're talking about marriage, the father of the bride. So he had a pile of cash in his coat, in his jacket pocket, which he needed at the end of a wedding. When I've married off my daughters, at the end of the wedding, that's one of the things you do is you go around giving people cash. Right? The band, the caterer, the guy running the hall, that's when you start to pay. At the end of the wedding, you got to pay. So this guy had a pile of cash in his pocket, and they get to the chuppah, and at the chuppah, all of a sudden he's like he can't find the envelope. So now his whole wedding is married. His daughter's getting married. His whole wedding is ruined because the entire night is like got to think about what am I going to do about this cash. They can't even enjoy it. Okay, can't find it. He comes up with other money, writes a check, whatever at the end of the night. He doesn't know where'd the cash go. So 3 days after the wedding, both sides' families got together. They had like a Sheva Brachos, and they had the video of the chasna, and everybody's sitting in the room together. And they're watching this video, and all of a sudden on the video, they see a hand reaching into his lapel, pulling out the envelope. And it was the father of the groom. His mechutin had pulled the envelope out of his pocket and taken it. Now that's awkward. Yeah, I went, Mishata Anibach. They probably said, it's just joking. Unfortunately, it's a true story. Unfortunately, true story. But most of the time, that doesn't happen.
You stole the money?
Yeah. That's when you take somebody else's cash out of their pocket. That's called stealing. Yes, that's real. He stole the money. And most of the time, it doesn't happen. I have been very fortunate. My mechutanim are very wonderful people. Every one of them. They have been very, very fortunate. It doesn't always. Most of the time, it works well. But the Gemara says that there's no chuppah, there's no wedding, there's no ksuba. There's no ksuba, the les beit tigra. There's no wedding that doesn't involve a little bit of stress and tension between the two sides. There's always going to be a little bit. Because that's the way it is. When you make a bar mitzvah, somebody once said, when you make your bar mitzvah, you're making your own simcha. When you make a wedding, it's a simcha with another family. So there's a lot of things that people can get upset about.
Unless you don't involve them.
Huh?
Unless you don't involve them at all.
You can't not involve them. They're involved as soon as there's no such thing as now. They'll just not involve you. What makes you think you get? All right, we'll do some chazor and on the Gemara.